How do, and welcome back, or should that be good day, because today I'm going to be reviewing probably one of the most iconic Australian beers, which is Victoria Bitter, or VB. This was originally brewed in 1854, and I still believe they brew it to the same recipe today. And though it says bitter on the tin, it's actually an adjunct lager. Like an American style adjunct lager. It's coming in at 4.9%, which makes it what the Australians call a full strength, as opposed to their mid-strength 3.5%. And they say it's a full flavoured, full strength beer. So let's open it up and we'll see what it looks like. The beer, like I say, it's probably the most iconic Australian beers. It's one of the biggest sellers in Australia, and I think their adverts actually are just as iconic as the beer itself. They haven't actually changed the format of their TV adverts for probably 50 years. You can watch them on YouTube. It's the same theme music, and it's the same catchphrase, which is a hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer. So let's see what this beer's like. Well, to start with, it's got a nice white frothy head, as you would expect from a lager, but compared to say your German macro produced style beers, it's a shade or two darker. That's more of like a golden colour, a little bit more like say a Czech Pils colour than your German macro European lagers. Aroma, it's your standard generic lager aroma. There's some sweet malt in there. There's no real hop that I'm smelling, and there's like a watery aroma as well, if that makes sense. So it's your typical lager smell. A little bit cardboardy as well, and malt. No hop that I can smell. There seems to be a nice level of carbonation coming up the glass, although this isn't a nucleated glass. It's just a normal flat bottom, but it still seems to be a bit of carbonation in there. So let's dive in and see what it tastes like. That's quite a bit different from, say, a macro Euro lager, and I'm really comparing this to those sorts of beers, your Heinekens, your Carlsberg, Stella Artois, that sort of thing, because this is brewed in huge quantities in Australia, which actually I didn't know, but if you look at the landmass of Australia, it's nearly twice that of Europe. So this is brewed in huge quantities. I'm comparing it to beers in Europe that are also brewed in huge quantities, but it's a completely different flavour, at least to my palate. It's quite soft actually flavoured. They do market it as full flavoured beer, but for me it seems to be a little bit diluted in the flavour. Yeah, a bit light, a bit like an American light lager as far as flavour intensity goes. It starts off quite sweet. You can tell it's an adjunct. You can taste that sweety, sugary flavour, and there is some bready malts there. But what's interesting for me is sort of like the mid palate, because it starts to move into a more it's a strange flavour. It's like a metallic-y mineral sort of flavour, a bit like a mineral water. Very carbonated, very fizzy, very light-bodied. But yeah, as it gets over the sort of like your mid palate, the middle of the tongue, you pick up this sort of like mineral water flavour, and then it finishes. It's not, I wouldn't say it's crisp. It finishes quite moist. There's not a lot of bitterness to it, but the back end has this metallic flavour and a bit of like a herby flavour, what I call a prickly herb sort of flavour, which must come from the hop, and I believe it uses the Australian Pride of Ringwood hop, and it's got this sort of like herbliness, prickly herbliness in the back, but virtually no bitterness. You do have that metallic note, and that sort of like gives it, I suppose, a bittery sort of flavour, but it's not bitter. Despite the name on the tin, I don't find it a bitter beer at all. Right, so would I buy it again? Do I encourage you to buy it and try it? To be honest, no, I wouldn't. Simply because of the cost. You know, obviously it's expensive. This is over £2 for this small can, 375 mils, which I think is a common size in Australia. I've seen bottles of the same size for VB in the UK, £2.50. Now, I bought this as part of, well, I thought it was a 6-pack. I actually got 12 of them. So I got it, I think it came out at about £2.10, £2.20 a bottle. And when you think that you could get 660 mils of, say, an imported German Vorsteiner with that lovely toasty malts of a Vorsteiner, I wouldn't say this is worth it. I mean, Vorsteiner wipes the floor with this beer. Then again, I suppose it's the opposite in Australia. You know, that I suppose an imported Vorsteiner in Australia would be twice the price that we would have to pay for it. That said, it's not, although it's not to my taste, I think, yeah, in Australia, you know, 40-degree summers, you want something that you can just sit back, lightly flavoured, you can just knock it back, refreshing, it fizzes in the mouth, and that does this, you know. I'm going to enjoy drinking the rest of these. But in the UK, well, I'll be frank, it's a beer that you probably find or expect to find more in sort of like the bargain basement aisle, compared to more premium lagers that we can buy. So I wouldn't actually recommend you buy it. It's not a beer I'm going to be rushing out and buying again. I probably never will buy it again, unless I visit Australia, of course, and then I may want to try one on tap, maybe a completely different beer on tap, who knows. But no, I wouldn't recommend that you buy the beer, not for the price that it is. And when you taste it and you put it side by side with some of the European lagers that we can get, Polish lagers, German, Dutch, I just don't think it's worth the money, to be honest. But I can understand why it's a big seller in Australia, because it just ticks all the boxes. But it's not to my taste. That metallic flavour, that mineral water flavour, and the lightness of the malts, it's just not to my taste, to be honest. Right, so that's it. That's the review of the iconic VB for a hard-earned thirst. And that's what they say on the TV ads. A hard-earned thirst needs, I think it's a big cold beer or something like that. And iconic beer, but not to my taste. Right, well, thank you very much for watching. I am actually thinking of doing more beers from the Southern Hemisphere. I've actually been looking through this book I've got, 1001 Beers You Must Try Before You Die. And there's a beer in here that I can actually buy in the UK. It's from Namibia, and I forgot the actual name of it now. I think it's called, yes, Windhoek Lager. The capital of Namibia is called Windhoek, so that could possibly be the next beer I try in the series, and it's cheaper than the VB. I think that works out at about £9 for 6, where this was £12.50, or maybe it was as much as £13 for 6. So it's a lot cheaper. It works out at about £1.50 a can. So I may give that one a go next. A Namibian Windhoek lager beer. But as for now, I'm going to enjoy these. It's not to my palate, but I'm going to enjoy them all the same. So thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure. And as always, I'll see you again in the next video. Bye bye for now. And have a good day.